Rain hammered the glass walls of a Manhattan law office, while Zaira Velez sat frozen in her funeral dress, mascara smudged, fingers still smelling of cemetery roses. Her husband slid divorce papers across the desk 3 days after burying her father. "Sign them," he ordered. She whispered back, "I'm pregnant." He didn't flinch. "A child I never wanted." Then her phone lit up with a message that changed everything. "Your father left you $47 billion, and evidence he was murdered. Protection is on the way. His name is Kyle Min." For the first time that day, Zaira smiled, and it terrified her husband. If you want to see how a discarded wife becomes the most dangerous woman in the room, stay until the end, and drop a like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hadn't stopped since they lowered her father into the ground. Zaira sat in the leather chair across from Damien Cross and tried to remember when her husband's face had stopped looking familiar. Maybe it was years ago. Maybe it was this morning when he'd walked past her crying in the kitchen without saying a word. The law office smelled like expensive wood polish and cold ambition. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline, all steel and glass and money. Thunder rolled somewhere beyond the buildings, the kind of storm that made you feel small. Damien adjusted his tie. Italian silk. The one she'd bought him after working 3 double shifts last December. He wouldn't look at her. "This doesn't have to be difficult," he said. Zaira's throat tightened. "You scheduled this meeting 3 days after my father died." Life doesn't stop, Zaira. She wanted to scream. Instead, she stared at the divorce papers spread between them like accusations. Her name appeared 17 times in clean legal print. Zaira Maria Velez. Each mention felt like a small funeral. "We've been married 4 years," she said quietly. "And we've been unhappy for 3 of them." The words landed like fists. Damien finally met her eyes. His face was handsome in that practiced lawyer way. Sharp jawline, expensive haircut, perfect teeth that showed up well in campaign photos. He'd been talking about running for city council. She'd heard him rehearsing speeches in the shower. "I supported you through law school," Zaira said. "I worked overtime so you could intern without pay. I believed in you when no one else did. I'm grateful for that." "You're grateful? What do you want me to say?" Damien leaned back in his chair. "That I still love you? We both know that would be a lie." Zaira's hands trembled. She tucked them under her thighs so he wouldn't see. Outside, rain streaked the windows in diagonal sheets. The city blurred into watercolor grays and distant headlights. "There's someone else," Zaira said. Not a question. Damien didn't deny it. "Celeste Laurent. Her family has connections, political weight, the kind of support that opens doors. So this is a business decision. This is a practical decision." He pushed the papers closer. "Sign them, Zaira. Let's both move on." She thought about the apartment they'd shared in Brooklyn when they were young and stupid and broke, how he used to kiss her forehead while she fell asleep on his chest, how they'd promised each other forever over Chinese takeout and cheap wine. That version of Damien was dead. Maybe he'd never really existed. "I'm pregnant," Zaira whispered. The room went silent except for rain hammering glass. Damien's expression didn't change. No shock, no joy, nothing. "How far along?" 8 weeks. He picked up a pen, set it down, picked it up again. "That doesn't change anything," he said finally. Zaira felt something crack inside her chest. "You don't want your own child?" "I never wanted children, Zaira. You knew that. We talked about it. You said—" "I said what you wanted to hear." Damien stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. "I'm marrying Celeste next month. The invitations are already printed. My career is finally taking off. A child would complicate everything." "A child. Not our child." Semantics. Zaira stood on shaking legs. Her black funeral dress felt too tight. She'd lost weight. Hadn't eaten in 3 days except for whatever people forced into her hands at the wake. "You're doing this now," she said, "while I'm grieving my father. Your father and I never got along. He saw through you." Damien turned from the window. "Your father was a businessman, Zaira. He understood pragmatism. He would have told you the same thing I'm telling you now. Cut your losses and move forward." She wanted to throw something, wanted to scream, wanted to collapse. Instead, she picked up the pen. Damien's shoulders relaxed. Good. Sign page 4, page 9, and the last page. Zahra's phone vibrated in her purse. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. The screen showed a single encrypted message from a number she didn't recognize. Do not sign anything. Her hand froze. Problem? Damien asked. No. Zahra set down the pen. I need a minute. We've been here an hour. I need to use the bathroom. She grabbed her purse and walked out before he could argue. The hallway was empty and sterile, lined with doors labeled with names of partners she didn't know. Her heels clicked against polished floors. She locked herself in the women's bathroom and opened the message with trembling fingers. Do not sign anything. Your father left you everything. $47 billion, multiple corporations, private alliances, and evidence he was murdered. Protection is already on the way. His name is Kyle Mann. Zahra read it 3 times, then a 4th. Her father had worked in import/export. At least that's what he'd always told her. He traveled constantly, spoke 6 languages, had business associates who wore expensive suits and never smiled. She'd asked him once what he really did. He'd kissed her forehead and said, I make sure you're safe, mija. That's all you need to know. Murdered. The word felt impossible. The official report said heart attack, natural causes. He'd collapsed in his study at home. The housekeeper found him. Zahra stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, pale skin, bloodshot eyes, smudged mascara she'd stopped caring about. $47 billion. The number didn't make sense. Her father had been comfortable. Upper middle class, maybe. But billions? Her phone buzzed again. A car is waiting downstairs. Black Mercedes. License plate HVM 7734. Kyle Min will explain everything. Do not tell Damien Cross. Do not sign the papers. Leave now. Zahra's heart hammered. This felt like a trap, or a scam, or insanity, but something in her gut twisted with recognition. Her father used to get messages like this, encrypted, urgent, anonymous. She'd always pretended not to notice. Zahra washed her face, fixed her hair as best she could, and walked back to the conference room on legs that barely held her weight. Damien looked up impatiently. Ready? Actually, Zahra said slowly, I need more time to think. His jaw tightened. We've been over this. My father just died. I'm pregnant. You're asking me to dissolve my marriage in one afternoon. She picked up her purse. I need a few days. Zahra, if you love me at all, she said quietly, you'll give me that? Damien's expression hardened. Fine. But this is happening, Zahra, with or without your cooperation. She walked out without looking back. The elevator descended 43 floors in heavy silence. Zahra's reflection stared back at her from polished steel walls. She looked like a ghost. The lobby was marble and glass and wealthy people moving with purpose. Security guards, receptionists, lawyers in sharp suits talking into phones. Zahra pushed through the revolving doors into rain and thunder. And there it was. A black Mercedes S-Class idling at the curb. Tinted windows. License plate HVM 7734. The back door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, maybe 6'3", mid-30s. Korean features with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. Charcoal suit that probably cost more than Zahra's annual salary. No umbrella despite the downpour. Rain soaked his hair and shoulders. He didn't seem to notice. Zahra Valles, he said. Not a question. His voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of calm that suggested violence held on a leash. Who are you? She asked. Kyle Min. He gestured toward the open car door. Your father arranged for my protection before he died. We need to talk. Now. I don't know you. You will. Thunder cracked overhead. Rain hammered the sidewalk between them. Kale didn't move. Didn't blink. Just waited. Zahra thought about Damien upstairs. The divorce papers. The casual cruelty in his voice when he'd dismissed their unborn child. She thought about her father collapsing alone in his study. Murdered. If I get in that car, Zahra said, what happens? You learn the truth, Kyle replied, and you decide what to do with it. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you here. His eyes scanned the street with professional paranoia. We're exposed. Make a choice. Zaira looked back at the glass tower behind her. 43 floors of lawyers and money, and people like Damien, who treated human beings like negotiation points. Then she looked at Kyle Min. Dangerous. That was the word her instinct screamed. This man was dangerous, but so was staying. Zaira got in the car. The door closed with an expensive thunk. Kale slid in beside her. The driver pulled into Manhattan traffic without a word. Inside, the Mercedes smelled like leather and something sharp. Cologne, maybe. Or gun oil. Talk, Zaira said. Kale handed her a tablet. Your father's will. Read it. She took the device with numb fingers and started scrolling. The words blurred, then sharpened, then destroyed everything she thought she knew. Last will and testament of Ricardo Valles. To my daughter, Zaira Maria Valles, I leave the entirety of my estate. Valles Global Enterprises, controlling interest 67%. Valles International Holdings, 100%. Valles Security Consulting, 100%. Real estate portfolio spanning 14 countries. Estimated liquid assets, $8.2 billion. Estimated total net worth, $47.3 billion. Zaira stopped breathing. This is impossible, she whispered. Keep reading. She scrolled down with shaking hands. In the event of my death under suspicious circumstances, the following evidence is to be delivered to my daughter and no one else. Security footage from my residence, final 48 hours. Toxicology analysis performed by private laboratory. List of individuals with motive and means. Financial records indicating blackmail/extortion attempts. Kyle Min has been retained as personal security and strategic advisor. Trust him completely. He answers only to you. The tablet slipped from Zaira's hands. Kyle caught it before it hit the floor. My father was murdered, Zaira said. Not a question anymore. Yes. By who? We're still confirming, but the list is short. Kale pulled up a video file. Watch this. The screen showed security footage from her father's study. Black and white. Timestamp 11:47 p.m., 3 nights before he died. Ricardo Valles sat at his desk reviewing documents. He looked tired. Older than Zaira remembered. Then he stood suddenly, grabbed his chest, stumbled backward, but before he fell, he looked directly at the camera and mouthed 3 words. Zaira's blood turned to ice. Protect my daughter. Then he collapsed. The video ended. Zaira couldn't speak, couldn't think. Her father's face frozen in that final moment, terrified, desperate, and aware he was dying. Poison, Kyle said quietly. Introduced through his evening scotch, fast-acting, designed to mimic cardiac arrest. The coroner said heart attack. The coroner was paid to say heart attack. Rage ignited in Zaira's chest. Who did this? That's what we're going to find out. Kyle shut off the tablet. But first, you need to understand what you've inherited. The car turned onto a private road Zaira had never seen before. Trees blocked the view of the street. High walls topped with cameras. They stopped in front of a steel gate that opened without anyone pressing a button. Your father didn't just run businesses, Kyle continued as they drove through. He ran an empire. Legal enterprises fronting for strategic alliances, political leverage, information networks. He controlled more power than most governments. And now that belongs to me. Yes. The car pulled into an underground garage beneath a building Zaira didn't recognize. Concrete and shadows and vehicles that looked military grade. Why didn't he tell me? Zaira asked. He was protecting you. Kale opened the door and stepped out. Knowledge makes you a target. Ignorance kept you safe. I'm not safe now. No, Kyle agreed. Now you're the most valuable target in the city. He led her to a private elevator that required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. The doors closed and they ascended in silence. Zaira's mind raced. 47 billion. An empire. Murder. And Damien trying to trick her into signing away everything while she was vulnerable and grieving. The realization hit like a freight train. Damien knows, she said. Kale glanced at her. Explain. He scheduled the divorce meeting 3 days after my father died. He pushed me to sign immediately. Her voice broke. He's been planning this. We're investigating his finances now, Kael confirmed. Preliminary findings show significant debt, gambling, bad investments disguised as campaign contributions. If he'd gotten your signature on those papers before the will was read, he would have had legal claim to half my assets. Community property law, yes. Rage and heartbreak collided in Zaira's chest. The elevator opened into a penthouse that looked like something from a crime thriller. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, minimalist furniture, screens displaying financial data and security feeds. A woman in a dark suit stood waiting, 40s, silver streaks in her black hair, the kind of presence that suggested she'd killed people and slept fine afterward. Zaira Velez, the woman said, I'm Diana Chen, Chief Legal Counsel for Velez Global. Your father trusted me with his life. Now, I work for you. Zaira shook her hand on autopilot. We have 17 hours before the will becomes public record, Diana continued briskly. Once that happens, every vulture in the financial world will come circling. We need you prepared. I don't know anything about running a corporation. You're about to learn. Diana gestured toward a conference table covered in documents. Sit. Zaira sat. For the next 6 hours, they walked her through everything. Corporate structures, shell companies, real estate holdings, investment portfolios, political connections, underground alliances that existed in the space between legal and criminal. Her father had built an empire that touched everything: technology, pharmaceuticals, defense contracting, private security, international shipping. Some of it was clean. Most of it was gray. None of it was simple. Your father's greatest asset wasn't money, Diana explained around midnight. It was leverage. He knew secrets that could destroy careers, topple governments, and bankrupt corporations. People paid him to keep quiet, or to speak up at the right moment. Blackmail, Zaira said flatly. Strategic intelligence, Diana corrected. There's a difference. Not a legal one. Legal is a spectrum. Diana poured herself scotch from a crystal decanter. Your father operated in the profitable middle. Zaira's head throbbed. She'd absorbed more information in 6 hours than in 4 years of social work. Kael had been silent through most of it, standing near the windows like a sentinel. Now he spoke. You have a choice, he said. Walk away. We can liquidate enough assets to set you up comfortably for life. You'll never have to think about this world again. And my father's murder? We'll handle it quietly. Zaira looked at him. Or you take the throne, Kael said. You learn, you adapt, you become what your father was building you to be. He never told me any of this, because he thought he had more time. The rain had stopped outside. The city glittered like broken glass under a clearing sky. Zaira thought about Damien, about the casual cruelty in his voice when he'd dismissed their child, about 4 years of her life poured into supporting a man who saw her as disposable. She thought about her father dying alone, poisoned by people who wanted what he'd built. She thought about this baby growing inside her, a child Damien didn't want, a child who deserved better than a mother who ran away from hard truths. If I do this, Zaira said slowly, what happens to Damien? Kael's expression didn't change. What do you want to happen? I want him to understand what he threw away. Consider it done. Diana smiled. There's a Laurent family gala tomorrow night, engagement announcement. Half the city's elite will be there. Including Damien, Zaira said. Including Damien. Kael moved closer. If you walk into that room as Ricardo Velez's heir, everything changes. You'll be declaring war on everyone who thought you were weak, everyone who underestimated you, everyone who tried to use you. Good, Zaira said. She stood on shaking legs and walked to the windows. Manhattan spread below her like a kingdom waiting to be claimed. Somewhere out there, Damien was probably celebrating, planning his future with Celeste, congratulating himself on escaping his inconvenient wife. He had no idea what was coming. I need clothes, Zaira said, jewelry, everything that makes it clear who I am now. Diana pulled out her phone. I'll have stylists here in an hour. And I need to know exactly how much debt Damien is hiding, Zaira continued. Every lie he's told, every dollar he's stolen. Already compiling the report. Diana confirmed. Zaira turned to face Kael. You said my father trusted you with his life. Yes? Do you trust me? Kael studied her with those dark, unreadable eyes. Not yet, but I think I will. Then teach me everything, Zaira said. I want to know how this world works, how to fight, how to win, how to make sure no one ever treats me like I'm disposable again. That kind of education has a cost, Kael warned. Everything does. He nodded slowly. Then we start tonight. The stylists arrived at 2 a.m. with racks of designer clothes and cases of jewelry that probably cost more than Zaira's childhood home. They transformed her. Gone was the grieving wife in a wrinkled funeral dress. In her place stood someone Zaira barely recognized. The woman in the mirror wore an obsidian gown that fit like liquid shadow, diamond earrings that caught the light like shattered stars, and on her right hand, the gold lion crest ring that had been her father's signature, the ring of the Valais Empire. Diana nodded approval. Now you look like someone worth killing. Comforting, Zaira muttered. Honest. Diana handed her a slim folder. Damien's complete financial history. Read it before tomorrow night. Zaira took the folder and sat down. What she found inside made her physically ill. Damien had been stealing from her for 3 years. Forged signatures. Phantom loans in her name. Credit cards she'd never applied for. He'd funneled money through shell companies and blamed his gambling debts on campaign expenses. And the Celeste Laurent marriage wasn't about love. It was a transaction. The Laurent family was bankrupt, desperate, willing to trade their political connections for an influx of cash they thought Damien had. Cash he'd planned to steal from Zaira through the divorce settlement. He played me, Zaira whispered. Yes, Kael said. For years. Yes. She closed the folder carefully. I want to destroy him. Revenge is expensive, Kael warned. Are you sure? Zaira met his eyes. Teach me how. And Kael Min smiled. It was the kind of smile that suggested he'd been waiting for her to say exactly that. 24 hours later, Zaira Valais walked into the Laurent family gala on Kael Min's arm. The ballroom fell silent. Every head turned. Every conversation died. Because the woman they were staring at wasn't the nobody social worker they'd dismissed. She was an empire walking. And across the room, champagne glass frozen halfway to his mouth, Damien Cross finally understood exactly what he'd lost. The ballroom smelled like champagne and expensive perfume, and the kind of wealth that never apologized for existing. Zaira stepped through the entrance beside Kael Min and felt 300 pairs of eyes lock onto her simultaneously. The Laurent estate had been transformed into something from a magazine spread. Crystal chandeliers dripping light across marble floors, ice sculptures melting slowly near champagne fountains, string quartet playing something classical and forgettable in the corner, old money pretending it wasn't panicking, because everyone in this room knew the Laurent family was drowning, and now they were staring at the woman who could either save them or watch them sink. Zaira's heels clicked against polished stone. The obsidian gown moved like liquid shadow with each step. Diamond earrings caught the light and threw it back sharp enough to cut. Kael's hand rested lightly on her lower back. Protective. Possessive. A silent message to everyone watching. This woman belongs to someone dangerous. Near the bar, a senator's wife choked on her martini. By the windows, a hedge fund manager actually dropped his phone. And across the ballroom, standing beside Celeste Laurent in her white engagement dress, Damien Cross went completely pale. Breathe, Kael murmured near Zaira's ear. She realized she'd been holding her breath. I'm fine. You're shaking. I'm angry. Good. Use it. They moved deeper into the crowd. People stepped aside without realizing they were doing it, creating space, showing deference. Zaira had spent 4 years invisible in rooms like this. Damien's +1. The social worker nobody bothered learning the name of. Now they couldn't look away. An older man in a tuxedo approached first, silver hair, expensive watch, the kind of face that appeared in financial newspapers. Miss Valais, he said warmly. Thomas Reichmann. I had the pleasure of working with your father on several occasions. Please accept my deepest condolences. Zaira shook his hand. Thank you. I hope we might continue the relationship your father and I built. Reichmann Industries would be honored to maintain our partnership with Vales Global. I'll have my people contact yours, Zaira said smoothly. Diana had coached her on this. Keep it vague, stay in control, never commit to anything in public. Reichmann smiled and moved away. Then they came in waves. CEOs, politicians, investors, socialites, every single one of them offering condolences that felt like business pitches. Kale stayed beside her through all of it, silent, watching, radiating the kind of controlled menace that made people nervous. Zaira noticed how conversations shifted when he looked at someone too long, how men straightened their posture, how women found reasons to step backward. Kael Min's reputation preceded him, and everyone in this room knew what he was. "You're doing well," Kael said quietly during a brief lull. "I feel like I'm performing." "You are, and they're buying it." Across the ballroom, Celeste Laurent stood beside her parents looking progressively more uncomfortable. Her engagement dress was beautiful. Probably cost a fortune her family didn't have. She was 24, blonde, pretty in that generic socialite way that photographed well. Zaira almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then Damien appeared. He cut through the crowd like a man trying to outrun a fire. His tuxedo was perfect, hair styled, smile plastered on, but his eyes gave him away, terrified. "Zaira," he said, too loud. "I didn't expect to see you here." She turned slowly, let him take in the dress, the diamonds, the gold lion ring on her finger. "Hello, Damien." His gaze flickered to Kael. "And you are?" "Kael Min." No handshake offered, no smile, just cold assessment. Damien's face twitched. He recognized the name. Everyone did. "I need to speak with my wife," Damien said. Privately. "Ex-wife?" Zaira corrected. "Or did you forget the divorce papers you shoved at me yesterday?" "We haven't finalized anything." "No, we haven't." Damien's jaw clenched. "Can we talk? Please?" Kael's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on Zaira's back. A question. She could say no. He'd handle it. But Zaira wanted this. "5 minutes," she said. "The terrace." Damien nodded and walked toward the French doors. Zaira followed with Kael shadowing her like a promise. The terrace overlooked manicured gardens and a fountain lit with blue lights. Cold air bit through the thin fabric of Zaira's dress. She didn't let herself shiver. Damien waited until they were alone. Then his mask cracked. "What the hell are you doing?" he hissed. "I could ask you the same thing." "You were supposed to sign the papers." "Was I?" Zaira leaned against the stone railing. "Tell me something, Damien. When did you find out about my father's will?" He went very still. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Liar." "Zaira!" "You scheduled our divorce meeting for 3 days after he died," she continued. "You pushed me to sign immediately. You dismissed our child without blinking, all while I was grieving and vulnerable and too destroyed to think straight." Damien's face flushed. "I didn't know about the will." "Then how do you explain the timing?" "Coincidence." "Try again." His hands balled into fists. "What do you want from me? The truth would be nice." "The truth?" Damien laughed bitterly. "Fine. Yes, I knew your father was wealthy. I didn't know how wealthy, but I knew enough. And you saw an opportunity. I saw a way out of a marriage that stopped working years ago." He stepped closer. "You were always too good for me, Zaira. Too selfless. Too dedicated to saving the goddamn world. I needed someone who understood ambition, power. Someone who could help me build something." "You mean someone whose family had money and connections?" "Yes." No shame in his voice now, just cold honesty. "Celeste's family can introduce me to people who matter. They can fund my campaign, open doors." "Her family is bankrupt," Zaira said flatly. Damien froze. "What?" "The Laurents are drowning in debt. They're hosting this party with money they don't have, hoping someone will bail them out." She smiled without warmth. "Congratulations on your engagement." All the color drained from Damien's face. "You're lying." "Ask them yourself." He stared at her like she'd shot him. "The divorce," Damien said slowly. "If we'd finalized it before the will became public, You would have had legal claim to half my assets. Yes, community property law. Zahra's voice went cold. Tell me, Damien, how long have you been planning this? I didn't. How long have you been forging loans in my name? 3 years? 4? His face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Phantom credit cards? Shell companies? Gambling debts disguised as campaign contributions. Zahra pulled a folded paper from her clutch and handed it to him. Here's a complete financial audit. My lawyers are very thorough. Damien's hand shook as he read. This is a mistake, he whispered. No, you made the mistake. I'm just documenting it. Inside the ballroom, someone clinked a glass, calling for attention, probably the engagement announcement. Damien looked at her with something like desperation. Zahra, please, I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can fix what exactly? She stepped closer. The 4 years you used me? The child you rejected? The fact that you tried to rob me while I was burying my father? I never meant... Yes, you did. Her voice dropped to something deadly quiet. You meant every single thing. You just didn't expect to get caught. Damien grabbed her wrist. Wrong move. Kale materialized from the shadows so fast Damien didn't see him coming. 1 second he was alone with Zahra. The next, Kyle had Damien's arm bent at an angle that suggested 1 more inch would break bone. Let go, Kale said softly. Damien released Zahra immediately. Kale didn't let go of him. Touch her again, Kale continued in that same quiet voice, and I'll make sure you never practice law with that hand. Understood? Understood, Damien gasped. Kale released him. Damien stumbled backward, cradling his arm. His face had gone from pale to red, humiliated, furious. You can't do this, he said. I'll fight the prenup. I'll sue. You'll do nothing, Zahra interrupted, because if you try, I'll release every piece of evidence my lawyers compiled. Fraud, embezzlement, forgery. The Manhattan DA is a friend of the family. Guess where that evidence ends up? Damien's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. Go back to your fiancé, Zahra said. Smile for the cameras. Make your announcement, and stay the hell away from me. She walked past him without another glance. Kale followed. Inside, the ballroom had gathered around a small stage where Celeste's father was giving a speech about family and tradition and partnership. Zahra barely heard it. Her hands were shaking, adrenaline flooding her system. She felt like she might throw up or scream, or both. You did well, Kale murmured. I threatened my husband, ex-husband, and he deserved worse. Did he? Kale looked at her. Yes. The applause started. Celeste and Damien took the stage, smiling, waving, playing their parts. Damien's eyes found Zahra in the crowd. She stared back without expression. Let him see exactly what he'd lost. The announcement ended. Music started. Couples drifted toward the dance floor. We should leave, Kyle said. Not yet. Zahra, I'm not running. She turned to face him. You said I was declaring war by coming here, so let's finish what we started. Kyle studied her. What do you have in mind? Introduce me, properly, to everyone who matters. A slow smile crossed his face. As you wish. For the next 2 hours, Kyle Min walked Zahra Valez through the upper echelons of Manhattan society like a queen claiming her throne. Senators, tech moguls, entertainment executives, pharmaceutical giants, defense contractors. Every single one of them shook her hand and pretended they'd always known who she was. Kyle did most of the talking at first. Smooth, professional, making it clear that Valez Global was very much operational under new leadership. But gradually, Zahra found her rhythm. She remembered names, asked intelligent questions, made promises without committing to specifics. Diana's crash course was paying off. And people responded, not because they liked her, but because they feared what she represented. $47 billion and the ghost of Ricardo Valez standing behind her. Near midnight, a woman in her 60s approached. Silver hair pulled back severe, diamonds at her throat, the kind of face that appeared on Forbes covers. Vivienne Park, she introduced herself. I run Park Technologies. Zahra shook her hand. I've heard of your company, and I've heard about you. Vivienne's smile was sharp. Your father and I had an understanding. I'm hoping we can continue that arrangement. What kind of understanding? The profitable kind. Vivian lowered her voice. Your father provided certain protections in exchange for priority access to emerging technologies, clean energy, AI development, quantum computing. Protections from what? Zara asked. Industrial espionage, hostile takeovers, government interference. Vivian's eyes gleamed. Ricardo Valles knew how to make problems disappear. I'm hoping his daughter inherited that skill. Kael's hand tightened on Zaira's back. A warning. I'll need time to review my father's existing contracts, Zaira said carefully. Of course. But don't wait too long. Vivian glanced around the ballroom. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you don't fill your father's shoes, someone else will. She walked away before Zaira could respond. What was that about? Zaira asked quietly. Your father's real business, Kael replied. The part that didn't appear in corporate filings. Illegal? Gray. Very gray. Zaira's head spun. This world had rules she didn't understand. Power structures built on handshake agreements and unspoken threats. I need air, she said. Kael guided her toward a side exit that led to a quieter garden. Away from the crowd, away from the music and champagne and people wearing masks made of smiles. The night air was cold and sharp. Zaira breathed it in deep. This is too much, she admitted. Yes. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither did your father when he started. That's not comforting. Kael leaned against a stone pillar. You asked to be taught. This is the lesson. Power isn't about knowing everything. It's about looking like you do until you figure it out. Fake it until you make it? More or less. Zaira laughed bitterly. My father built this empire over decades. You expect me to inherit it overnight? No, I expect you to survive long enough to learn. The bluntness hit like cold water. Who wants me dead? Zaira asked. That's a long list. Give me the short version. Kael pulled out his phone and showed her a document. Names, photos, brief descriptions. Marcus Chen, your father's former business partner. They had a falling out 5 years ago. Chen runs half the gambling operations in the city. He's violent and he holds grudges. Next. Senator Patricia Whitmore. Your father had evidence of her taking bribes from defense contractors. She paid him to keep quiet. Now that he's dead, she'll want that evidence destroyed. Next. Viktor Orlov, Russian oligarch. Your father blocked one of his real estate deals in Brooklyn. Cost Orlov $300 million. He's not the forgiving type. Zaira scrolled through more names, dozens of them, each one representing someone who wanted her father dead and now wanted her gone too. How do I fight all of them? She asked. You don't. Not at once. Kael took the phone back. You learn which ones can be bought, which ones can be intimidated, which ones need to be destroyed. And you'll teach me that? If you're willing to learn. Zaira looked at him, really looked at him. Kael Min was attractive in a dangerous way. Sharp features, dark eyes that never stopped calculating. The scar through his eyebrow suggested violence survived. But more than that, he looked at her like she was capable, not fragile, not broken, not the grieving widow everyone else saw. Why are you doing this? Zaira asked. Your father paid me. That's not an answer. Kael was quiet for a long moment. Your father saved my life, he said finally. 15 years ago. I was nobody. Disposable muscle for people who didn't care if I lived or died. Ricardo pulled me out of that world, gave me education, resources, purpose. So this is loyalty. This is a debt. Kael's expression softened almost imperceptibly. And maybe something else. What? Curiosity. He stepped closer. Your father talked about you constantly. His brilliant daughter, who wanted to save the world instead of rule it. He was so proud of you. Zaira's throat tightened. He never told me that. He told everyone else. Tears burned behind her eyes. She refused to let them fall. I don't know how to be what he wanted, she whispered. Maybe you're not supposed to be. Kael's voice went gentle. Maybe you're supposed to be something different, something better. The moment stretched between them, too long, too charged. Zaira stepped back. We should go back inside. We should leave. I'm not done. Yes, you are. Kyle gestured toward the ballroom. You made your statement. Everyone saw you. Mission accomplished. But, Zaira, he caught her hand, you've been running on adrenaline since yesterday. You barely ate today. You're pregnant and grieving and holding yourself together with sheer willpower. Go home. Rest. We'll continue tomorrow. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. Fine, she said. They slipped out through a side entrance. The Mercedes was waiting. Same driver, same professional silence. Zaira collapsed into the leather seat and closed her eyes. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind bone-deep exhaustion and the beginning of a headache. You did well tonight, Kyle said. I threatened my husband and made enemies of half the city. Ex-husband. And yes, but you also announced yourself as a force to be reckoned with. That's worth something. Zaira opened one eye. Is it? Ask me in a week. The car slid through Manhattan traffic. Rain had started again, soft, constant. Where are we going? Zaira asked. Safe house, Upper West Side. Your father kept it for emergencies. Is this an emergency? You tell me. Zaira thought about Damien's face when she'd handed him the financial audit, the fear in his eyes, the way his confidence had shattered. She should have felt satisfied. Instead, she just felt tired. What happens now? She asked. Now you rest. Tomorrow we start your education. Kyle glanced at her. Diana is preparing a full briefing on your father's business operations, legal and otherwise. It's going to be overwhelming. More overwhelming than tonight? Significantly. Great. The car stopped in front of a brownstone that looked expensive and anonymous, perfect for hiding in plain sight. Kyle helped her out, guided her up the steps. The door opened with a keycard. Inside was clean and modern, minimal furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the street, security cameras in every corner. There's clothes in the bedroom, Kyle said. Food in the kitchen. Panic button near the bed if you need immediate extraction. Extraction to where? Somewhere safer. Zaira walked to the windows. The city glittered below. Millions of people living normal lives, working, sleeping, existing without empires or murder or men like Kyle Min. I don't belong in this world, she said. You were born into it, Kyle replied. You just didn't know. That's not the same thing. He moved beside her, close enough that she could feel his heat. Your father spent your entire life building walls between you and this world, Kyle said quietly. He wanted better for you, safety, normalcy, a life without blood on your hands. But life doesn't care what we want. His reflection stared back at her from the dark glass. You can run, sell everything, disappear, live quietly somewhere far away. Or you can fight, take what's yours, become what this world needs you to be. Zaira turned to face him. And what's that? Dangerous. The word hung between them like a dare. I'm not dangerous, Zaira said. I'm a social worker. I help people. You were a social worker. Now you're something else. What if I don't want to be? Kale's expression didn't change. Then tomorrow morning I'll arrange for the sale of all your assets. Set you up with new identity documents. Find you a place where no one will ever find you. Just like that? Just like that. Zaira searched his face for deception, found only brutal honesty. And if I stay? She asked. Then the real work begins. She thought about Damien, about spending 4 years invisible, about being dismissed and discarded like she didn't matter. She thought about her father dying alone, poisoned by people who saw him as an obstacle. She thought about the child growing inside her, a daughter who deserved a mother strong enough to protect her. Teach me, Zaira said. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Kale nodded slowly. Then we start at dawn. Be ready. He turned to leave. Kyle, Zaira called. He stopped. Thank you. For tonight. For all of this. Don't thank me yet, he said. You have no idea what you're signing up for. Then he left. Zaira stood alone in the safe house, surrounded by security cameras and reinforced glass and the weight of an empire she hadn't asked for. Outside, rain hammered the windows. Inside, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Your father's killer is closer than you think. Trust no one, not even Kael Man. Zaira's blood went cold. She stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then she walked to the bedroom, locked the door, and didn't sleep at all that night. Because somewhere in the city, someone was watching, waiting. And Zaira Velez had just painted a target on her back. Dawn came gray and cold through bulletproof windows. Zaira hadn't slept. She'd spent 6 hours staring at that message until her eyes burned and her hands went numb from gripping her phone. Your father's killer is closer than you think. Trust no one, not even Kael Min. She'd tried tracing the number, blocked, encrypted. Whoever sent it knew what they were doing. Now she sat at the kitchen counter in borrowed clothes, black jeans and a cashmere sweater someone had left in the closet, drinking coffee that tasted like ash and waiting for Kael to arrive. The panic button sat 3 feet away. One press and armed guards would flood the apartment. But what if Kael was the threat? What if her father's most trusted advisor had been playing her from the beginning? The door opened at 6:15 exactly. Kael walked in carrying 2 paper bags that smelled like fresh bagels and looking entirely too alert for someone who'd probably slept as little as she had. "Morning," he said. Zaira watched him move through the kitchen, fluid, controlled, every movement efficient, dangerous. "You look terrible," Kael continued, setting down the bags. "Did you sleep?" "No." "Eat something anyway." He pulled out a bagel and cream cheese. "Diana's briefing starts in an hour. You'll need energy." Zaira didn't touch the food. Kael noticed. "What's wrong?" "I got a message last night." His entire demeanor shifted. "Show me." She handed him her phone. Kael read the message once, then again. His jaw tightened. "When did this come in?" 2 hours after you left. "And you didn't call me?" "The message said not to trust you." Kael looked up sharply. Their eyes met across the kitchen island. "Do you?" he asked. "Trust me?" Zaira's hand moved closer to the panic button. "I don't know." "Fair enough." Kael set down her phone carefully. "Let me show you something." He pulled out his own phone and brought up a file. Security footage. Multiple camera angles of the safe house exterior from last night. "Watch," he said. The footage showed the street, empty, rain falling. Then at 1:47 a.m., a figure appeared. Black hoodie, face obscured. They moved quickly to a car parked across the street, got in, and drove away. Different angle. Zoomed in on the license plate. "I ran the plate," Kael said. "Registered to a shell company. Same shell company your father used for covert operations." "Meaning what?" "Meaning someone with access to your father's network sent that message." Kael's voice went hard. "Someone who knows where you are, who you're with, what you're doing. One of my father's people. Or someone pretending to be." Zaira's coffee had gone cold. She pushed it away. "Why warn me about you specifically?" "To isolate you, make you paranoid, turn you against the one person protecting you." Kael met her eyes. "It's strategy. Break your support system before attacking directly. Or you're lying and the message was real." "Yes, that's also possible." The honesty surprised her. "So what do I do?" Zaira asked. "You decide. Right now." Kael's expression didn't change. "Either you trust me or you don't. Either I'm your ally or your enemy. Choose." "That's not fair." "Nothing about this is fair." Zaira studied his face, looking for tells, deception, anything that suggested the message was right. She found nothing. Either Kael Min was exactly who he claimed to be, or he was the best liar she'd ever met. "I trust you," she said finally. For now. For now is good enough." Kael pocketed his phone. "But we need to accelerate your training. Whoever sent that message is moving faster than I expected." Meaning your father's killer knows you're a threat, and they're trying to eliminate you before you figure out who they are. 20 minutes later, Diana Chen arrived with 2 assistants carrying enough documents to fill a small library. They spread everything across the dining table. Corporate structures, financial statements, property deeds, alliance agreements written in careful legal language that meant absolutely nothing and everything simultaneously. "Your father's empire has 3 layers, Diana began without preamble. The visible layer, the gray layer, and the invisible layer. She pointed to the first stack of documents. Visible. Valles Global Enterprises. Publicly traded. Clean financials. Technology development. Pharmaceutical research. Real estate holdings. This generates approximately $8 billion annually. Second stack. Gray. Private companies operating in legally ambiguous spaces. Security consulting that's actually intelligence gathering. Logistics companies that move things governments prefer not to acknowledge. Import-export firms that facilitate transactions between people who can't be seen doing business together. This generates another $12 billion. Third stack. Invisible. Alliances. Favors owed. Information brokering. Protection rackets disguised as consulting fees. Your father knew secrets that could destroy careers, collapse corporations, and topple governments. People paid him to keep quiet or to speak at the right moment. Diana's expression was clinical. This layer doesn't generate revenue. It generates power. Zaira's head spun. How did he manage all of this? Carefully, and with help. Diana gestured to an organizational chart. Your father had people embedded everywhere. Government agencies, police departments, corporations, criminal organizations, a network of loyalists who reported directly to him. Where are those people now? That's complicated. Diana pulled up another document. Some have remained loyal to you. Some are waiting to see if you survive. And some have already switched allegiance to your father's enemies. How do I know which is which? You don't, not yet. Cale leaned against the wall, arms crossed. That's why we're starting with the inner circle. People your father trusted absolutely. Like who? Diana read from a list. Marcus Webb, head of security for all Valles properties, former special forces, your father's personal bodyguard for 15 years. Where is he now? Dead. Diana's voice was flat. Car accident 2 days after your father died, brake line cut. Zaira's stomach dropped. Someone's killing his people. Yes? Who else? Catherine Flores, chief financial officer. She managed the gray layer finances. Found dead in her apartment last week. Apparent suicide. Apparent? The police report says sleeping pills and alcohol, but Catherine was diabetic and sober for 10 years. Diana's jaw tightened. Someone's cleaning house. Kyle pushed off the wall, which means whoever killed your father is eliminating anyone who might know the truth. How many people are left? Zaira asked. On the inner circle, 4? Diana showed her photos. Chen Park, Victor Orlov, Vivian Park, and Senator Patricia Whitmore. Zaira recognized the names from Kyle's list last night. These are the same people you said wanted my father dead. Because one of them did it, Kale confirmed, and now they're erasing the evidence. Zaira stared at the photos. 4 faces. 4 possible killers. How do we find out which one? Diana smiled without warmth. We make them nervous. See who breaks first. For the next 8 hours, they built a plan. It was brutal, calculated, the kind of strategy that would have horrified the woman Zaira had been a week ago. But that woman was gone, burned away by grief and betrayal and the cold realization that mercy was a luxury she couldn't afford. They would target each suspect systematically, apply pressure, watch for cracks. Chen would get audited by agencies his bribes had kept at bay. Orlov would find his real estate deals mysteriously blocked by zoning violations. Vivian would discover her technology patents challenged by shell companies Zaira now controlled. Whitmore would receive evidence of her corruption delivered anonymously to journalists. We're declaring war on all of them, Zaira said. Yes, Diana confirmed. What if we're wrong? What if the killer isn't one of these 4? Then we've eliminated suspects and narrowed the field. Cale's voice was cold. Either way, we get closer to the truth. Zaira looked at the photos again. These were powerful people, dangerous people, people who would fight back. When do we start? She asked. Tonight, Diana said. I've already prepared the initial moves. We just need your authorization. She slid a document across the table. Zaira read it carefully. Legal language authorizing financial audits, property seizures, and intelligence gathering operations. Her hand shook as she signed, because with that signature, she wasn't just inheriting her father's empire, she was inheriting his enemies and his methods. Diana collected the document. I'll execute these immediately. Expect responses within 24 hours. What kind of responses? Violent ones. Diana's expression didn't change. I'm assigning additional security. 4-person detail. Former military. They'll shadow you everywhere. I don't need... Yes, you do. Kael interrupted. Your father had 12 bodyguards and still got poisoned. You're not taking chances. Zaira wanted to argue, but the message from last night burned in her memory. Your father's killer is closer than you think. Fine, she said. Diana left to execute the plan. Her assistants followed with armfuls of documents. Kael and Zaira sat alone in the safe house, surrounded by the architecture of her father's hidden world. You're doing well, Kael said. I signed a document authorizing what's essentially corporate warfare. Yes. And you think that's well? I think you're surviving. That's all that matters right now. Zaira stood and walked to the windows. The city looked different in daylight, less magical, more brutal. I don't recognize myself anymore, she admitted. Good. That's not a comfort. It's not supposed to be. Kael moved beside her. The woman you were last week would have signed those divorce papers, walked away. Let Damien and your father's killers win. Maybe that woman was smarter. Maybe. But she'd also be dead within a month. The bluntness hit like a slap. You really believe that? Zaira asked. Yes. No hesitation. Your father's enemies won't stop with him. They'll eliminate every Velez until the bloodline ends. You, your child, anyone who might inherit what he built. Zaira's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. 8 weeks pregnant, barely showing, a life growing inside her that depended entirely on her survival. Then I'll learn, she said, whatever it takes. Kael's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression darkened. What? Zaira asked. Diana's team just intercepted communications. Someone's planning a move against you. Tonight. Who? Unknown, but they're using military-grade encryption and coordinating with at least 6 operatives. Zaira's pulse spiked. What kind of move? The permanent kind, Kael was already texting. We're relocating, now. Where? Velez Tower. Your father's private penthouse, 43rd floor, better security, limited access points. If they know where I am now, they'll know where you're going, yes. Kael grabbed a bag and started packing essentials. But Velez Tower has defensive measures this place doesn't, and I need home field advantage. 20 minutes later, they were in the Mercedes racing through Manhattan. 4 additional vehicles followed. Diana's security team. Zaira watched the city blur past. People on sidewalks living normal lives, buying coffee, hailing cabs, existing without death threats or corporate espionage. She envied them. Tell me about my father, Zaira said suddenly. Kael glanced at her. What do you want to know? Everything? Who he really was. Not the father I knew, the man who built this empire. Kael was quiet for a moment. Your father was brilliant, he said finally. Ruthless when necessary. But he had rules, lines he wouldn't cross. Like what? He never hurt innocents, never targeted families, never used children as leverage. Kael's voice softened. He spent his entire life protecting you from this world because he knew what it cost, what it turned people into. What did it turn him into? Someone who could sleep at night, barely. The car turned onto a private drive. Steel gates opened automatically. Underground parking illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights. They exited quickly. Security formed a perimeter. The private elevator required 3 separate authentication methods. Keycard, fingerprint, retinal scan. The doors closed and they ascended in silence. 43 floors. The penthouse doors opened onto something from a magazine spread. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Modern furniture. Art that probably cost millions. And everywhere, security, cameras, motion sensors, reinforced glass, panic rooms disguised as closets. Your father was paranoid, Kael explained, and thorough. It didn't save him. No, it didn't. Zaira walked to the windows. From here, the city looked small, manageable. It was an illusion. I need to know, she said. Who sent that message last night? We're working on it. Work faster. Kael's phone rang. He answered, listened. His face went carefully blank. Understood. Implement Protocol 7. He hung up. What? Zaira demanded. Senator Whitmore just called a press conference. She's announcing a federal investigation into Valles Global. Zaira's stomach dropped. For what? Tax evasion, money laundering, racketeering, everything. Kale pulled up a news feed. She's moving faster than we anticipated. The screen showed Whitmore at a podium, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. The Valles Empire has operated above the law for too long, Whitmore said. Her voice was strong, righteous. Ricardo Valles built his fortune through corruption and criminal activity, and now his daughter seeks to continue that legacy. I'm calling for a full investigation. Zaira felt the ground shift beneath her. She's destroying me. She's trying to. Kale was already typing. But we have leverage, remember? The evidence of Whitmore's bribery, her corruption. Release it, Zaira said. If we do, we lose the advantage. She'll know we have it. I don't care. Release it. Kyle hesitated. Zaira, now. He made the call. 30 seconds later, files flooded the internet. Bank statements, recorded conversations, evidence of Senator Patricia Whitmore accepting bribes from defense contractors, pharmaceutical companies, and foreign governments. The news cycle exploded. Whitmore's press conference dissolved into chaos. Reporters screaming questions, her face going pale, security rushing her from the podium. There, Zaira said. Done. But Kyle wasn't smiling. What? She asked. That was too easy. What do you mean? Whitmore's smart. She wouldn't move without knowing we'd retaliate. Kale pulled up more feeds. Unless retaliation was the point. Zaira's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press accept. Hello? A voice she didn't recognize. Female. Cold. Nicely done, Ms. Valles. You just publicly declared war on a United States senator. That's bold. Who is this? Someone who's been watching you very closely, and I have to say I'm impressed. You're learning faster than your father did. Zaira's pulse hammered. What do you want? To give you a gift. Information you'll find very interesting. I'm listening. Kelman didn't just work for your father. He worked for Marcus Chen, your father's former partner, the man who's been trying to take over Valles Global for 5 years. Zaira's blood went cold. That's a lie. Is it? Ask yourself why Kyle was perfectly positioned to protect you the moment your father died, why he knew exactly where to find you, why he's been pushing you to make aggressive moves that destabilize your own empire. Stop. He's been playing you from the beginning, sweetheart, setting you up to fail so Chen can sweep in and claim everything. The call ended. Zaira stared at her phone, then slowly turned to look at Kyle. He was watching her with careful eyes. What did they say? He asked. That you work for Marcus Chen. Kale didn't deny it immediately, and that hesitation was everything. Zaira, is it true? It's complicated. That's not an answer. Kale's jaw tightened. I did work for Chen years ago, before your father. When? 15 years ago. I was young, stupid. Chen hired me as muscle. Kyle stepped closer. Your father pulled me out of that life, gave me purpose. I haven't spoken to Chen since. Can you prove that? No. The honesty was brutal. Then how do I know you're not lying? Zaira's voice shook. How do I know this entire thing isn't a setup? You don't. Kale's expression was stone. You have to choose. Trust me or don't. That's not good enough. It's all I have. Zaira's mind raced. The message last night, the phone call just now, both warning her about Kyle. Either he was her protector or her worst enemy. Get out, she whispered. Kale didn't move. If I leave, you're vulnerable. I said get out. Zaira, listen to me. Get out! The security team materialized from corners of the penthouse, guns drawn, aimed at Kyle. He looked at them, then at Zaira. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Kale held her gaze for a long moment. Then he walked to the elevator and left without another word. The doors closed. Zaira stood alone in her father's penthouse, surrounded by armed guards who might be loyal or might be waiting for the right moment to kill her. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. Good choice. Now let's talk about who really killed your father. Meet me at the address below. Come alone, or everyone you love dies. An address in Brooklyn. Warehouse district, the kind of place where bodies disappeared. Zaira looked at the security team. 5 faces. 5 possible threats. She thought about Kael's expression when she'd accused him. The careful blankness that suggested either innocence or perfect deception. She thought about her father dying alone. And she made a choice. I need to go out, she told the head of security. Alone. Ma'am, that's not advisable. I don't care. I'm leaving. You can't stop me. She grabbed a coat and walked to the elevator before anyone could argue. The doors closed. 43 floors down. And Zaira Velez descended into the darkness completely alone. Because somewhere in Brooklyn, someone was waiting. And she was about to discover that the real monster wasn't the one she'd sent away. It was the one she was walking straight toward. The warehouse smelled like rust and old blood and mistakes. Zaira stood in the doorway, breathing hard from the climb up 3 flights of rotting stairs. Her hand gripped the small pistol Kael had given her during their first security briefing. She'd never fired a gun before, wasn't even sure she'd loaded it correctly. But it was all she had. The address had led her to Red Hook, abandoned shipping district, buildings that hadn't seen legitimate business in 20 years. The kind of place where screams went unheard and bodies stayed hidden. She ditched the security detail by leaving through a service exit, took a cab 3 blocks, then another, then walked the last mile to make sure no one followed. Now she was alone in the dark, waiting for whoever had promised answers. Hello? Her voice echoed off concrete walls. Silence. Then footsteps. A figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the warehouse. Tall, feminine, moving with the confidence of someone who owned the space. The woman stepped into a shaft of moonlight coming through broken skylights. Zaira's breath caught. Hello, Zaira. It was Diana Chen, but not the polished lawyer from the boardroom. This Diana wore black tactical gear, gun holstered at her hip, hair pulled back severe, eyes cold as winter. I don't understand, Zaira said. I know. Diana walked closer, slow, deliberate. That's been the problem from the beginning. You don't understand anything. Zaira raised the pistol with shaking hands. Stay back! Diana laughed. You're not going to shoot me. You sent those messages. You've been manipulating me. Yes and no. Diana stopped about 20 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough that Zaira's untrained aim wouldn't matter. I sent the warnings. But manipulation? Sweetheart, I've been trying to save your life. By telling me not to trust Kael? Kael Min is dangerous, brilliant, loyal to a fault, and completely blind to the truth. Diana's expression was clinical. He thinks your father was some kind of noble businessman walking the line between legal and illegal, building an empire with rules and boundaries. He wasn't. Your father was a monster, Zaira. A brilliant, calculating, ruthless monster who destroyed anyone who got in his way, including my family. The words landed like bullets. What are you talking about? Diana's face twisted with something dark. 20 years ago, your father and Marcus Chen were partners. Best friends. They built Velez Global together from nothing, made billions, controlled half the city. I know this story. No, you don't. Diana stepped closer. What you don't know is that my father was their third partner, Edward Chen, Marcus's younger brother, and your father had him killed. Zaira's grip tightened on the gun. That's a lie, is it? Ask yourself why there's no record of Edward Chen anywhere in Velez Global's history. Why Marcus and your father had a falling out exactly 22 years ago. Why your father never mentioned a third partner. Why would he kill his own partner? Because Edward found out what Ricardo was really doing. Diana's voice went cold. Your father wasn't just building a business empire. He was building a criminal network. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking, all disguised as legitimate shipping operations. No. Edward threatened to go to the authorities, so your father poisoned him, made it look like a heart attack, the same method used on Ricardo himself. Diana smiled without warmth. Poetic, isn't it? Zaira's head spun. You killed my father. No. Diana's expression shifted. I wanted to. Spent 20 years planning it, but someone beat me to it. Who? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Diana pulled out a tablet and brought up security footage. Watch. The screen showed her father's study, the same footage Kael had shown her, Ricardo collapsing, mouthing his final words. But this version was longer. It showed what happened before. Someone entered the study 40 minutes earlier, face obscured by camera angles. They went to Ricardo's scotch decanter, added something, left. Who's that? Zahra demanded. Can't tell. They knew where the cameras were, stayed out of frame. Diana zoomed in on a hand. But look at this. A ring, gold, with a distinctive crest. Zahra's blood went cold. She knew that ring, had seen it 1,000 times. That's impossible, she whispered. Is it? Diana's voice was gentle now, almost sympathetic. Think about who had access to your father's study. Who he trusted completely, who stood to gain everything if he died. Zahra's mind raced backward. Through memories, conversations, small moments she'd dismissed. Her father's housekeeper, Maria. 20 years of loyal service. Always there, always invisible. Wearing that exact ring because Ricardo had given it to her as a gift for 15 years of service. Maria, Zahra breathed. Maria Flores, Catherine's sister. Diana's expression hardened. Catherine was your father's CFO, the one who supposedly committed suicide last week, except she didn't kill herself. Maria did it, after Catherine discovered what Maria had done. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Maria poisoned my father. Yes. Why? Because Ricardo Valles destroyed her family too. Different method, same result. Diana pulled up more files. Maria's husband worked for your father 25 years ago. Warehouse supervisor. He witnessed a shipment he wasn't supposed to see, arms being smuggled to a conflict zone. He threatened to report it. And my father killed him. Car accident. Brake line cut. Maria knew. But she had 3 children to feed and no proof, so she stayed quiet. Got a job in Ricardo's house, waited, planned, and 25 years later, she got her revenge. Zahra felt like the floor was tilting. Everything she thought she knew was a lie. Her father wasn't a flawed businessman walking gray lines. He was a criminal who'd left a trail of bodies behind him. And Maria. Sweet Maria who made her breakfast and hugged her at the funeral. Who'd probably watched her grow up while planning Ricardo's murder for decades. Where is she now? Zahra asked. That's the question. Diana's jaw tightened. She disappeared the day after your father died. Vanished. I've been tracking her for a week. Finally got a lead tonight. Where? Pier 47. Container ship leaving for Portugal in 90 minutes. She's on it. Zahra's mind raced. We call the police, have her arrested. On what evidence? This footage? It doesn't show her face. That ring? Circumstantial. Catherine's murder? Ruled a suicide. Diana shook her head. Maria planned this perfectly. The only way to get a confession is to confront her. Make her admit it. Then let's go. Not we. You. Zahra stared. What? Maria won't talk to me. Doesn't know who I am. But you? Diana's expression softened. You're Ricardo's daughter, the person she watched grow up. If anyone can get through to her, it's you. I can't. Yes, you can. Diana pulled out car keys. My car's outside. GPS is already programmed. You have 75 minutes before that ship leaves. Get there. Find Maria. Get her confession. And if she refuses? Diana handed Zahra a small recording device. Put this in your pocket. Get her talking. That's all you need. Zahra took the device with numb fingers. Why are you helping me? She asked. Diana was quiet for a moment. Because I spent 20 years hating your father, blaming him for everything wrong in my life. And then I met you, and I realized you're not him. You're just a woman who got caught in the blast radius of his choices. That doesn't answer the question. Maybe I'm tired of revenge. Diana's voice cracked slightly. Maybe I want one person in this nightmare to actually get justice instead of just more bodies. Zahra searched her face for deception, found only exhaustion, and something that looked like regret. What about Kael? Zahra asked. Kael is exactly who he says he is. Loyal, honest, trying to protect you. I needed you to doubt him so you'd come alone. so I could tell you the truth without him shutting it down to protect Ricardo's memory. You manipulated me. Yes. I should hate you. Yes. Zaira looked at the gun in her hand, then at Diana, then at the tablet showing Maria's hand with that gold ring. She made a choice. If you're lying to me, Zaira said quietly, I'll come back and finish what you started with my father. Diana smiled. Fair enough. Zaira ran, down the rotting stairs out into the Brooklyn night, into Diana's car, a black sedan with tinted windows and an engine that roared to life like something military. The GPS showed 52 minutes to Pier 47. She floored it. The city blurred past, streetlights, traffic, people living normal lives. Zaira's hands shook on the wheel. Her mind kept replaying Diana's revelations. Her father was a criminal. Maria was his killer. Everything was a lie. Her phone rang. Kael. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press accept. Where are you? His voice was tight, controlled fury. Brooklyn. Why? Getting answers. Zaira, listen to me very carefully. Diana Chen is not who you think she is. I know. She told me everything. Everything? Kael's voice went dangerous. Did she tell you she's been working with Marcus Chen for 6 months? That this entire thing has been a setup to destabilize Velez Global so Marcus can take over? Zaira's foot eased off the accelerator. What? Diana's not trying to help you. She's trying to destroy you. Whatever she told you was designed to isolate you, make you vulnerable. She showed me proof. Security footage. Maria killed my father. Did she show you Maria's face in that footage? No, but the ring could belong to anyone, could be faked, edited. Kael's breathing was harsh. Where are you going right now? Zaira looked at the GPS, 38 minutes to Pier 47. To confront Maria. Stop the car, right now. Why? Because there is no Maria. Not anymore. Kael's voice cracked. We found her body 3 hours ago, dumped in the Hudson. She's been dead for 2 days. The world tilted sideways. Zaira pulled over so hard the tires screamed. Cars honked, swerved around her. That's impossible, Diana said. Diana lied. About everything. Kael's voice was steel. She's Marcus Chen's daughter, Zaira. Edward Chen was her father. She's been planning this for years, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy everything Ricardo built. Why not just kill me? Because killing you makes you a martyr. But destroying you, making you look incompetent, turning your own empire against you, that's revenge. Zaira's hands went numb. The ship, Pier 47. She said Maria would be there. There's no ship. Or there is, and it's a trap. Either way, if you go there, you die. Zaira looked at the GPS. 29 minutes. Her mind raced, trying to piece together truth from lies. Diana had shown her security footage, explained everything, made it all make sense. But Kael had been there from the beginning, protecting her, teaching her. Who was lying? How do I know you're telling the truth? Zaira asked. You don't, same way you didn't know if Diana was. Kael's voice softened. But I'm asking you to trust me. One more time. Don't go to that pier. Come back. We'll figure this out together. Zaira closed her eyes. Every instinct screamed contradiction. I'll call you back, she said. Zaira. She hung up, sat in the car breathing hard while traffic rushed past. The recording device Diana had given her sat in her pocket. Small. Innocuous. Zaira pulled it out and looked at it closely for the first time. It wasn't a recording device. It was a tracker. And probably a listening device, which meant Diana had heard every word of Kael's warning. Zaira's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Kael is lying. Maria is alive. Pier 47. If you don't come, she disappears forever. And so does the truth. Another message. A photo. Maria. Alive. Zip-tied to a chair in what looked like a shipping container. Blood on her face. Terror in her eyes. Zaira's breath stopped. Either Diana was telling the truth and Maria was alive, or someone had edited a photo to look like Maria, and this was the trap Kael warned about. No way to know which. The GPS showed 22 minutes. Zaira made a decision. She started the car and drove toward Pier 47. But she also sent a text to Kael with her location. If you're right and this is a trap, I'm going to need backup. If I'm right and Maria is there, I'm getting her confession. Either way, come find me. She hit send and drove faster. Pier 47 emerged from the darkness like something from a nightmare. Abandoned cranes, rusting containers, ships that looked like they hadn't moved in years. Zaira parked and got out. The pistol felt heavy in her hand. Wind came off the water cold and sharp, carrying the smell of salt and oil and decay. She walked toward the pier. "Maria?" she called. Her voice echoed off metal and concrete. Movement to her left. Zaira spun, aimed the gun. A figure stepped out from behind a container. Not Maria, Diana. And she was smiling. "Good," Diana said. "You came. Where's Maria?" "There is no Maria. Not anymore." Diana's smile widened. Kael was right about that part. We found her body days ago, floating in the river with a bullet in her head. Zaira's gun hand shook. "You lied." "I simplified, made it easier for you to understand." Diana walked closer. "Maria did kill your father. That part was true. But she didn't work alone." "Who helped her?" "Me." The confession landed like a bomb. Diana pulled out her own gun, aimed it casually at Zaira's chest. "I've been planning this for 20 years, she continued, working my way into your father's organization, becoming indispensable, waiting for the perfect moment. And then Maria came to me, told me she wanted revenge too, so we partnered." "You murdered my father." "Maria poisoned him. I made sure the evidence disappeared, the coroner's report, the security footage, witnesses." Diana's expression was cold. Ricardo Velez deserved to die screaming, but poison was faster than he earned. Zaira's finger moved to the trigger. "Don't," Diana warned. "You've never fired that gun. You'll miss." "I won't." "Why tell me this?" "Because you need to understand what happens next." Diana gestured to the pier behind her. "In about 5 minutes, Marcus Chen arrives. He thinks I'm delivering you to him. Well, him. Leverage to force Velez Global into a merger. But I'm going to kill you both. Then blame Kael Min for your death. He'll go to prison. Marcus's organization will collapse without leadership, and I'll be the one left standing to pick up the pieces. You'll never get away with this." "I already have." Diana's smile was terrible. "Everyone thinks I'm the loyal lawyer, the victim's daughter getting justice. No one suspects—" The gunshot came from nowhere. Diana's shoulder exploded in red. She stumbled backward, gun falling from her hand. Kael emerged from behind a stack of containers, his gun still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. "Get down!" he shouted at Zaira. She dropped. More gunshots. Muzzle flashes in the dark. Armed men poured from containers and shadows. At least a dozen. Marcus Chen's people. Kael returned fire. Controlled. Precise. 2 men dropped. But there were too many. Zaira scrambled behind cover, her heart hammering so hard she thought it would break through her ribs. This was it, the trap. Exactly like Kael warned, Diana had played her perfectly, and now they were surrounded. Kael dove behind the same container as Zaira, breathing hard, blood on his sleeve. "You're shot," Zaira gasped. "Grazed. I'll live." He reloaded. "If we survive the next 5 minutes." "How many are there?" "Too many." Kael looked at her. "I'm sorry. I should have stopped you from coming." "I didn't listen." "You never do." Footsteps approached, multiple directions. They were boxed in. Kael grabbed her hand, squeezed it once. "Whatever happens," he said, "your father would be proud of who you've become." Zaira wanted to cry, or scream, or both. Instead, she raised her gun with shaking hands. "Teach me how to shoot," she said. Kael smiled. "Aim center mass. Squeeze, don't pull." And a voice cut through the darkness. "Enough." Marcus Chen walked onto the pier, flanked by more armed men. 60s. Silver hair. Expensive suit, completely wrong for a gunfight. He looked at Diana bleeding on the ground, then at Kael and Zaira hiding behind the container. "Well," Marcus said. "This is disappointing." Diana struggled to her feet, clutching her shoulder. "Marcus, I can explain. You betrayed me. That's all I need to know. Marcus gestured to one of his men. A single shot. Diana collapsed and didn't move again. Marcus turned his attention to Kyle and Zaira. Come out, he said calmly, or my men start shooting through that container. Your choice. Kyle looked at Zaira, a question in his eyes. She nodded. They stood, hands raised, guns lowered. Marcus Chen smiled. Hello, Zaira. I've been waiting a long time to meet Ricardo's daughter. The feeling isn't mutual, Zaira said. Understandable. I did try to have you killed several times this week. Marcus walked closer. But business is business, and your father's empire is worth more than one inconvenient heir. What do you want? Simple. Sign over controlling interest in Valles Global, merge your operations with mine, and I let you live quietly somewhere far away. And if I refuse? Marcus pulled out his own gun, aimed it at Kyle's head. Then I kill the man protecting you. Then I kill you. Then I take your empire anyway. Longer process, same result. Zaira's mind raced, looking for options, angles, anything. She found nothing. They were surrounded, outgunned. Diana was dead. No backup coming. This was it. The moment where she either surrendered everything her father built or died defending it. Zaira looked at Kyle, at the blood on his sleeve, the calm acceptance in his eyes. He'd known this moment was coming, had probably expected to die protecting her from the beginning, but he'd done it anyway, because Ricardo had asked him to, or maybe for some other reason neither of them had admitted yet. Don't, Kyle said quietly. Don't give him anything. He'll kill you. I know. I can't. Her voice broke. I can't watch you die. Kyle's expression softened. You're stronger than you think. Marcus cocked his gun. Touching, but I'm losing patience. Choose now. Zaira looked at the Empire's destroyer, looked at the man who'd become something more than protection, and made the only choice she could live with. I'll sign, she said, but only if you let Kyle go. Safe passage, no retaliation. Done. Marcus lowered his gun, pulled out a tablet. Sign here. The document appeared. Legal transfer of all Valles Global Holdings to Chen Enterprises. Everything her father built. Everything she'd fought for. Gone with a signature. Zaira took the stylus with shaking hands. Don't do this, Kyle said desperately. Zaira, I'm sorry, she whispered, and pressed the stylus to the screen. The lights went out. Every single light on the pier died simultaneously. Gunfire erupted in the darkness. Muzzle flashes like lightning. Men screaming. Bodies falling. Kale grabbed Zaira and pulled her to the ground, covering her body with his. Stay down, he hissed. The shooting lasted 30 seconds, then silence. Emergency lights flickered on, dim, red-tinged, and standing in the center of the pier, surrounded by Marcus Chen's dead men, was someone Zaira had never expected to see. Her father's head of security, Marcus Webb. The man Diana said died in a car accident 2 weeks ago. Very much alive, very heavily armed, and leading a team of operators who moved like military professionals. Sorry we're late, Marcus said. His voice was gravelly, scarred. Traffic was hell. Zaira stared. You're supposed to be dead. Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. Marcus walked over and helped her up. Your father taught me that trick. Fake your death. See who comes out of hiding. And? Diana took the bait, started making moves, led us straight to Marcus Chen. He looked at the tablet Zaira was still holding. Did you actually sign that? I was about to. Smart girl, stalling. I wasn't stalling, I was trying to save Kyle. Marcus glanced at Kyle. He can take care of himself, unlike you apparently. Hey! A groan from across the pier. Marcus Chen was still alive, bleeding from multiple wounds but conscious. Marcus Webb walked over and looked down at him. Been hunting you for a long time, Marcus said, ever since you killed Ricardo. Chen laughed wetly, blood on his teeth. I didn't kill Ricardo, Diana did, and Maria. I just funded the operation. Same thing, is it? Chen's eyes found Zaira. Your father was a monster, girl. Ask anyone in this city. He destroyed families, ruined lives. The world is better without him. Zaira stepped closer, looked down at the man who'd ordered her father murdered, and felt Nothing. No rage, no grief, just exhaustion. You're probably right, she said quietly. My father did terrible things, hurt people, built his empire on bodies and blood. Chen smiled. But he was still my father, Zara continued. And you still killed him, so fuck you and everything you represent. She turned to Marcus Webb. Can we go home now? Yes, ma'am. Sirens wailed in the distance, red and blue lights approaching. Zara walked away from the carnage, away from Marcus Chen bleeding out on the pier, away from Diana's body and the nightmare that had consumed her life. Cale walked beside her, silent, solid, still bleeding but alive. They reached the car together. Behind them, Marcus Webb was already coordinating cleanup, making calls, handling the police, doing what he'd done for Ricardo for 15 years. Is it over? Zara asked. Cale looked back at the pier, the bodies, the flashing lights. For now, he said. It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was honest. And somehow, that was enough. They got in the car and drove away from Pier 47 while the city swallowed the violence like it had swallowed thousands of crimes before. Because this was Manhattan, and monsters had always lived here. The only question was which ones survived. The safe house felt different now. Zara sat by the windows watching dawn break over Manhattan, while Kael's wound was being stitched by a private medical team Marcus Webb had brought in. No hospitals, no questions. Just efficient professionals who worked in silence and disappeared when finished. 3 hours since Pier 47. 2 hours since Marcus Webb had called to confirm Marcus Chen died before the ambulance arrived. 1 hour since the lawyers confirmed Diana Chen's entire operation had collapsed with her death. And 0 minutes since Zara had stopped shaking. The adrenaline had finally worn off, leaving behind bone-deep exhaustion and the kind of clarity that only came after surviving something that should have killed you. Kael walked over once the medics left, his arm in a professional sling, face pale but steady. How bad? Zara asked. Through and through. Miss the bone. I'll live. He sat down beside her carefully. How are you? I almost signed away everything. But you didn't. Only because the lights went out. Zara's voice cracked. Another 10 seconds and it would have been over. 10 seconds is all you needed. She looked at him, really looked at him. The exhaustion around his eyes, the tension he carried in his shoulders, the way he'd positioned himself between her and the door even now. You knew Marcus Webb was alive, she said. Cale didn't deny it. Yes. When? From the beginning. Your father's contingency plan. If anything happened to Ricardo, Marcus would fake his death and operate from the shadows, clean up threats, protect you without being visible. You lied to me. I kept information compartmentalized. There's a difference. Not to me. To Kael was quiet for a moment. You're right. I should have told you. But your father's instructions were explicit. Trust no one, not even family. Not until all threats were neutralized. Are they? Zara asked. Neutralized? The immediate ones. Yes. Diana's dead. Marcus Chen is dead. Their networks are collapsing. Kael shifted in his seat. But your father made enemies for 40 years. Some of them are still out there, waiting. So this never really ends. No, it doesn't. The honesty was brutal. Zara stood and walked to the window. The city looked clean in morning light, like the violence of last night had never happened. I don't want this, she said quietly. I know. The empire, the enemies, the constant paranoia. She pressed her forehead against cool glass. I just wanted to help people, run community programs, make a difference in small ways. You still can. Can I? Zara laughed bitterly. I'm pregnant with a child whose father rejected her, inheriting billions built on blood, surrounded by people who either want to kill me or use me. How exactly do I go back to normal? Kael stood and moved beside her. You don't go back. You go forward, into something new. What does that look like? That's your choice to make. Zara turned to face him. What would you do? If you were me? Kael considered the question seriously. I'd ask myself what kind of world I want my daughter to inherit. Then I'd build it, regardless of the cost. My daughter. The words felt strange in her mouth. I haven't let myself think about her, About what kind of mother I'll be, what kind of life I can give her. You'll be the kind of mother who fights, who survives, who doesn't give up even when everything is burning. Kale's expression softened. That's not nothing. Zaira's throat tightened. My father fought, survived, built an empire, and it got him murdered in his own study. Your father also protected you for your entire life, kept you safe, made sure you had choices he never did. Kale gestured to the city beyond the window. He could have dragged you into this world as a child, trained you to be his successor from birth. But he didn't. He gave you freedom, even if it meant dying to protect it. Tears burned behind Zaira's eyes. I never got to thank him. He knew. How? Because every time he talked about you, he smiled. Real smiles. The kind he never showed anyone else. Kale's voice was gentle. You were his proof that something good could come from the darkness he lived in. The tears fell. Zaira didn't try to stop them. Kale pulled her into his arms carefully, mindful of his injury. She collapsed against his chest and cried for the first time since the funeral. For her father. For the lies. For the life she'd lost and the life she'd gained. For everything that would never be simple again. Kale held her through all of it, silent, steady, present. When the tears finally stopped, Zaira pulled back and wiped her face. I look terrible, she muttered. You look human. Same thing. Kale smiled. Not always. Zaira's phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but something made her check. A message from Marcus Webb. Damian Cross just filed an emergency custody petition for your unborn child, claiming you're unfit due to criminal associations. Press conference in 2 hours. Zaira's blood went cold. That son of a bitch, Kale read over her shoulder. His expression darkened. He's trying to use your father's empire against you, paint you as a criminal to get custody rights. He doesn't want custody. He wants leverage. Probably. What do you want to do about it? Zaira thought about Damian, about his face when she'd handed him the financial evidence of his fraud, the desperation in his eyes when he'd realized Celeste's family was bankrupt. He'd been humiliated, exposed. His political career was over before it started, and now he was lashing out, trying to hurt her the only way he had left. I want to destroy him, Zaira said quietly. That can be arranged. No. She looked at Kyle. Not like that. Not with violence or threats. I want him destroyed legally, publicly, so thoroughly that no one ever takes him seriously again. Kale's smile was dangerous. I'll make some calls. 90 minutes later, Zaira Velez walked into the Manhattan family court building wearing a tailored black suit that cost more than Damian's monthly rent, and carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would end his career. Behind her walked a legal team that made corporate lawyers nervous. Ahead of her waited cameras and reporters and Damian's desperate attempt to stay relevant. Kyle stayed close. Always close. The courtroom was packed. Media, legal observers, people who'd heard about the Velez heir and wanted to see the spectacle. Damian sat at the plaintiff's table looking confident, too confident. He had no idea what was coming. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The hearing began. Damian's lawyer went first, painting a picture of Zaira as dangerously unstable, involved in criminal enterprises, unsuitable for motherhood. My client simply wants to ensure his child is raised in a safe environment, the lawyer said smoothly, not surrounded by the violence and corruption that defines the Velez family legacy. Zaira's lawyer stood. Eleanor Morrison, 65, steel gray hair, the kind of attorney who'd argued cases before the Supreme Court and won. Your Honor, my client welcomes this opportunity to address these baseless accusations. Eleanor's voice was crisp, professional. In fact, we've prepared a comprehensive response. She opened her briefcase. What came next was surgical. Eleanor systematically destroyed every claim Damian's lawyer made, presented evidence of Damian's fraud, his embezzlement, his gambling debts, showed proof he'd forged Zaira's signature on multiple loans, demonstrated he'd married Celeste Laurent purely for financial gain based on false pretenses, revealed he'd attempted to manipulate Zaira into signing divorce papers while she was grieving specifically to claim her assets, and finally presented a sworn affidavit from 3 separate witnesses stating Damian had publicly stated He never wanted children and had pressured Zaira to terminate the pregnancy. By the time Eleanor finished, Damien looked like he'd been hit by a truck. The judge looked at him with barely concealed disgust. "Mr. Cross, does your counsel have any response to these allegations?" Damien's lawyer shuffled papers. "Your Honor, we were not prepared for—" "Because they're true," Zaira said. Everyone looked at her. Eleanor put a hand on her arm. A warning. Let the lawyers handle it. But Zaira stood anyway. "Everything Miss Morrison presented is true," she continued. "Damien forged my signature, stole from me, lied to me, and rejected our child the moment I told him I was pregnant. He doesn't want custody. He wants money, or revenge, or both." The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Valles, you don't need to—" "Yes, I do." Zaira looked directly at Damien. "Because I want him to hear this. I loved you. I supported you. I believed in the man I thought you were, and you threw it all away for ambition and greed." Damien's face flushed red. "Zaira, I'm not finished." Her voice went cold. "You wanted to destroy me in this courtroom, paint me as unfit, take my child. Well, congratulations. You just proved to everyone here exactly who you really are, and it's not someone any child deserves." Silence filled the courtroom. The judge cleared her throat. "Mr. Cross, I'm denying your petition. Furthermore, I'm referring your case to the district attorney for investigation into the fraud allegations presented here today. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel fell. Damien sat frozen, destroyed. Zaira walked out without looking back. The cameras were waiting outside, reporters shouting questions, microphones thrust forward. Eleanor handled them, professional, measured, giving just enough statement to control the narrative. Zaira and Kael slipped out a side entrance into a waiting car. Inside, finally alone, Zaira let out a breath she'd been holding for hours. "That felt good," she admitted. "Justice usually does." "Is it justice? Or just revenge with better PR?" Kael considered the question. "Does it matter?" "I don't know anymore." They drove in silence for a while. Manhattan sliding past the windows. The city that had been her home and her prison and her battlefield all at once. "Where do we go from here, Sam?" Zaira asked. "That depends. What do you want?" Zaira thought about the empire, the money, the power, everything her father had built. She thought about Diana's revelations, the bodies Ricardo had left behind, the families he'd destroyed. She thought about her daughter, growing inside her, innocent, deserving better. "I want to change things," she said finally. "Take what my father built and turn it into something that actually helps people instead of just consolidating power." "That's ambitious." "Is it possible?" "Maybe, if you're willing to fight for it." "I am." Kael nodded slowly. "Then we start tomorrow. Clean house. Remove everyone loyal to the old ways. Rebuild from the ground up. What about the gray areas, the illegal operations? We shut them down, gradually, carefully, so we don't create power vacuums that get filled by worse people. And the enemies? We make new alliances, find common ground, turn enemies into partners where possible, eliminate the ones who won't negotiate." Zaira looked at him. "You make it sound simple. It won't be. It'll take years, maybe decades, and you'll make enemies every step of the way." Kael's expression was serious. "But if anyone can do it, you can." "Why do you believe that?" "Because you're not your father. You have something he never did." "What?" "A conscience." The words settled between them. Heavy, true. "Will you stay?" Zaira asked quietly. "Help me rebuild? Even though it means years of fighting and probably getting shot at repeatedly?" Kael smiled. "Where else would I go?" "Somewhere safer, quieter, without pregnant heiresses and corporate warfare." "Sounds boring." "Kael." He looked at her. Really looked at her. Something shifted in his expression. "I made a promise to your father," he said, "to protect you, keep you safe, make sure his legacy didn't destroy you. And somewhere along the way, it stopped being about the promise." His voice went quiet. "It became about you." Zaira's breath caught. "I'm pregnant with another man's child," she said. "I know." I'm inheriting an empire built on blood. I know. I'm damaged and grieving and probably going to make terrible decisions. I know. Kael reached over and took her hand. And I'm staying anyway. Zaira's throat tightened. Why? Because when I look at you, I don't see Ricardo's daughter, or a pregnant widow, or an empire heir. He squeezed her hand gently. I see someone who refused to break even when everything was burning. Someone who stood up to killers and lawyers and her own husband and didn't back down. Someone worth protecting, worth believing in. Worth loving? The question hung in the air. Kael was quiet for a long moment. Ask me again in 6 months, he said finally. When things are less insane and you're thinking clearly. What if things are never less insane? Then ask me anyway. Zaira laughed. It felt strange, foreign, like a muscle she'd forgotten how to use. But it also felt good. The car pulled up to Velez Tower. Home now. Her father's fortress becoming her own. They rode the elevator to the 43rd floor in comfortable silence. Inside the penthouse, Zaira walked to the windows and looked out at the city her father had ruled from these same floors. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. What if I fail? What if I can't do this? Kael moved beside her. Then you fail. And you get up. And you try again. That's all anyone can do. My father never failed. Your father failed constantly. He just never let anyone see it. Kael's voice was gentle. The difference between success and failure isn't perfection, it's persistence. Zaira leaned against him, careful of his injury. He wrapped his good arm around her shoulders. They stood like that while the sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of orange and red and purple. What happens tomorrow? Zaira asked. Tomorrow we start building something new, something better. And tonight? Tonight you rest, eat, take care of yourself and your daughter. Kael pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Tomorrow's war starts tomorrow. Zaira closed her eyes and let herself believe it might be possible. The next morning, Zaira Velez called her first board meeting as acting CEO of Velez Global Enterprises. The conference room filled with executives, some loyal, some nervous, all watching to see if Ricardo's daughter would survive her first 100 days. Zaira walked in wearing power-like armor, black dress, heels sharp enough to cut, the gold lion ring on her finger. Beside her stood Kael Min, silent, watchful, a reminder that she wasn't alone. Good morning, Zaira said. Her voice was steady. I know many of you are wondering what direction this company will take under new leadership. So let me be clear. She pulled up financial projections on the screen. We're divesting from every operation that exists in legal gray areas, effective immediately. That includes certain shipping operations, consulting firms, and real estate holdings that generate revenue through questionable means. Murmurs around the table. I know this will impact short-term profits, Zaira continued. I don't care. We're going to rebuild this company as something my daughter can be proud of, something that generates wealth without generating bodies. An older executive raised his hand. With all due respect, Ms. Velez, your father built this empire specifically because those gray operations provided leverage other companies couldn't match. My father is dead, Zaira said bluntly. Murdered by people who wanted what he built. That leverage you're talking about, it made him a target. It made everyone who works here a target. I'm eliminating that risk. By eliminating our competitive advantage? By building new advantages, legal ones, sustainable ones. Zaira met his eyes. Anyone who has a problem with this direction can resign, effective immediately, with a generous severance package and my gratitude for their service. Silence. No one moved. Good, Zaira said. Then let's get to work. The meeting lasted 4 hours. By the end, Zaira had restructured the entire corporate hierarchy, promoted people who'd been loyal, removed those who'd been complicit in her father's darker operations, set new policies that prioritized transparency and accountability. It was exhausting, but it was progress. Afterward, Kael walked her back to the penthouse. You did well, he said. Half the board thinks I'm naive. Let them think that. You'll prove them wrong. Zaira collapsed onto the sofa. Her feet hurt. Her head throbbed. The baby was making her nauseous, but she'd survived. How long until someone tries to kill me again? She asked. Best guess, 3 to 6 months. You're shaking up established power structures. People won't like it. Comforting. Honest. Zaira closed her eyes. Tell me something true. Something that isn't about empires or enemies or survival. Kale was quiet for a moment. Then he sat beside her and said, Your father's favorite memory was teaching you to ride a bike. You were 5, kept falling, scraped your knees, but you refused to give up. He said, that's when he knew you'd be stronger than him. Zaira's eyes burned. He never told me that. He told me. The night before he died, said no matter what happened to him, you'd be okay, because you had something he never did. What? The ability to build instead of just protect. A tear slid down Zaira's cheek. Kyle wiped it away gently. He was right, you know. You're already doing what he never could, changing things, making them better. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. But it's something, and something is how change starts. Zaira opened her eyes and looked at him. Ask me now. Ask you what? If you love me, don't wait 6 months. Ask me now. Kale's expression shifted. Vulnerable. Honest. I wasn't going to ask, he said quietly. I was going to tell you when the timing was right. The timing will never be right. Probably not. So tell me anyway. Kale took her hand, held it carefully like something precious. I don't know if it's love yet, he admitted, but it's something close. Something that scares me and makes me want to be better. Something that makes me think about futures instead of just survival. That's the most honest thing anyone's ever said to me. Is it enough? Zaira thought about everything that had happened, the lies, the betrayals, the violence. She thought about Damien, who'd claimed to love her while stealing from her. And she thought about Kyle, who'd stayed beside her through everything without making promises he couldn't keep. Ask me in 6 months, she said, when we know if we survived, when my daughter is born, when things are less insane, and if things are never less insane, then ask me anyway. Kale smiled. Deal. He leaned forward and kissed her, soft, careful, full of possibility. When they pulled apart, Zaira rested her forehead against his. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For staying, for believing, for not treating me like I'm fragile. You're the least fragile person I know. I don't feel like it. You don't have to feel like it. You just have to be it. 6 months later, Zaira gave birth to a daughter, 8 pounds, healthy lungs, dark eyes that looked up at the world like she was already planning to conquer it. Kyle was there, holding Zaira's hand through the delivery, looking terrified and awed in equal measure when they placed the baby in his arms. What's her name? The nurse asked. Zaira looked at her daughter, at the tiny perfect human she'd created despite everything trying to destroy them both. Serena, she said. It means peaceful. Kyle smiled. After everything that's happened, you're naming her peaceful? After everything that's happened, she deserves peace. They brought Serena home to Valles Tower 3 days later. The penthouse had been transformed. Baby furniture, soft colors, everything designed for the life growing there instead of the empire being run from 43 floors above the city. Marcus Webb had assigned rotating security, 4-person teams, 24-hour coverage, because threats still existed. They always would. But they were manageable now. The empire was changing, slowly, painfully. But it was happening. Velez Global had divested from 70% of its questionable operations, invested the profits into clean energy, medical research, educational programs. The stock price had dropped initially, then recovered, then exceeded previous highs, because it turned out ethical business could still be profitable business. Zaira had made enemies, powerful ones, people who'd preferred Ricardo's way of doing things. But she'd also made allies, other companies tired of operating in gray spaces, politicians looking for partners who wouldn't eventually blackmail them, communities that had been exploited finally finding someone who listened. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. One evening, Zaira stood in the nursery watching Serena sleep. 3 months old, already smiling, already showing personality. Kale appeared in the doorway. She's beautiful. She looks like Damien, Zaira said quietly. She looks like you. Same features, his coloring. So? Kyle moved beside her. Biology doesn't determine family. Love does. Zaira looked at him. You love her. Yes. Even though she's not yours? She's yours. That makes her mine. Kael's voice was certain. If you'll have me. Have you how? He pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, no giant diamond, just clean lines and honest metal. Marry me, Kael said. Not because you need protection, not because your father asked me to stay, but because in 6 months I've learned what love actually looks like. And it looks like you, like Serena, like building something good from ruins. Zaira's eyes filled with tears. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard, she said. It's also the only one that's true. I'm still a mess, still learning how to run a company, still making mistakes. I know. I'm damaged and complicated and probably going to therapy for years. I know. And you want to marry me anyway? Yes. Zaira looked at the ring, then at Kael, then at her daughter sleeping peacefully in her crib. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago. Invisible. Dismissed. Signing divorce papers in a law office while her father's body was still warm in the ground. That woman was gone. Burned away by fire and rebuilt from ash. And what stood in her place was stronger, harder, but also more human, more real. Yes, Zaira said, I'll marry you. Kael slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They married 6 weeks later in a small private ceremony. No press, no spectacle. Just people who mattered. Marcus Webb stood as witness. Eleanor Morrison handled the legal documentation. A handful of employees who'd proven loyal attended. And Serena slept through the entire thing in a bassinet near the front. When Kael kissed his bride, Zaira felt something she hadn't felt in a year. Safe. Not because someone was protecting her, but because she'd learned to protect herself and chosen to share that strength with someone who deserved it. The reception was held in the Valles Tower penthouse. Small, intimate, champagne and laughter and people who'd survived the same war. Near midnight, Zaira stepped onto the balcony. Looking out at the city her father had ruled and she was rebuilding, Kael joined her, wrapped an arm around her waist. Regrets? He asked. About marrying you? No. About everything else? Zaira thought about her father, about the empire, about the cost of power. I wish I'd known him better, she said finally. The real him. Not the protective father or the ruthless businessman, just the man. He would have liked who you became. You think? I know. Kael pressed a kiss to her temple. You're doing what he never could, building something that lasts, something that doesn't require blood to sustain it. It's still hard. It always will be, but hard doesn't mean impossible. They stood together while the city lights glittered below. Millions of lives, millions of stories, millions of people fighting their own battles. Zaira was just one of them. But she was surviving, and sometimes survival was victory enough. Inside, Serena started crying, hungry or uncomfortable or just wanting attention. Zaira went to her, picked her up, held her close while Kael warmed a bottle. This was her life now, not perfect, not simple, not anything like what she'd imagined a year ago, but it was hers, built from ruins and choices and the refusal to let darkness win. The woman once discarded with divorce papers had become one of the most powerful figures in the city, not because a man saved her, but because she'd saved herself, and learned that strength wasn't about never breaking, it was about rebuilding every time you did. Zaira fed her daughter and looked at her husband and thought about tomorrow. There would be new battles, new enemies, new challenges, but there would also be mornings, and laughter, and the small, perfect moments that made survival worth it. Somewhere in the city, people were still plotting, still scheming, still wanting what she had. Let them come. She'd be ready. Because Zaira Velez had learned the most important lesson her father never taught her. Power wasn't about control. It was about choice. And she chose to fight, to build, to love, despite the cost. She chose to become someone her daughter could be proud of, someone who turned an empire of blood into something that healed instead of hurt. It would take years. Maybe a lifetime. But Zaira had time, and she had something her father never did. Hope. Not the naive kind that ignored reality, but the fierce kind that stared darkness in the face and built light anyway. That was enough. That was everything. And as dawn broke over Manhattan, Zaira Velez stood in her kingdom not as a victim, not as someone's daughter, not as anyone's discarded wife, but as herself, whole, flawed, human, powerful, exactly who she was meant to be. And nothing would ever take that away again. Pa,